How many of you have ever said, I want to change something? Like, I want to lose weight, I wanted this, I wanted that, and you started to create change only to go back to where you were? How many have done this? Say, I want to show you how to create lasting change, because anybody can change for the moment, but lasting change is what you're really after. Really, there are 3 beliefs you have to have first to have lasting change, and then there are 3 steps you have to take. First, let's do the 3 beliefs, okay? The first belief you must have to have lasting change is that change is a must and not a should. So you have to believe that something must change, not that something should change. If someone says, I really should go on a diet, I go, ain't gonna happen. Because I know, should never happens. Should you do when it's convenient. Should is not consistent. Musts are the things we find a way to do because we go, it is a must. We take it to a different level of consequence in our bodies and our minds and our emotions and our spirits. So if there's something you haven't changed and you keep thinking about it but still hasn't changed, I guarantee you one of these or more of these 3 beliefs is missing. First one that's probably likely is you really think you should change, but it's not a total absolute must in your gut. Now, some people really is. They think, well, this weight must come off. Something must be done, about our environment. We're destroying our environment. Or something must be done about racism. It's disgusting. But see, that's not enough to get you to follow through by itself. You have to have a second belief. And that second core belief has got to be, I must change it. Key core belief. Not only that it must change, but I must change it. See, if I think something must be done about racism, that's for somebody else to do. Unless I say, I must do something. Now I'm going to be engaged. Now I'm going to actually do something. Or I might think the weight must come off me, but then I'm going to run to Jenny Craig or someone else to do it for me. And there's nothing wrong with Jenny Craig. She's great as a coach. But if Jenny Craig's the one doing it for you, or Tony Robbins the one doing it for you, then I get the muscle and you don't. So I'll be stronger and healthier, and you'll be okay for a while until you get off on some uncomfortable thing. Then you can blame me or Jenny Craig or someone else why it didn't work. But if you know you're the source, then there's only one place to look, which is in the mirror. So it cannot be based on someone else. It's got to be, it must change, and I must change it. Now, some people believe, okay, this weight must come off, and I know I must be the one to do it, right? But, or, this environment, something's got to be done, and I know I must do something, but they have a third belief that keeps them from doing it. And that third belief you got to have to do it is, I can change it. I can change it. Why is this one important? Why do you got to believe it's not only change as a must, but also, secondly, believe I must change it, and most importantly, I can? Because if you don't believe you can change it, then are you going to put a bunch of energy and effort and force into something you think's not going to work? Of course not. For you to really get the result that you want, you've got to believe you can. So very often people go, yeah, this weight must come off. I know I must do it, but I can't. Why? They'll say, I tried everything, right? I've tried millions of things. I've tried it all. You've not tried it all. You've not tried everything, or you would have got results. But we start telling ourselves these stories, and we start believing those incantations. Now, one of the reasons they believe they can't do it is because they never have before. So I want to give you a core belief to write down that's really, really important. And that is this: the past does not equal the future. The past does not equal the future. The past does not equal the future. See, so often people say, I can't do this. Well, it's because they haven't done it before, or they've never done it, or they think they've tried everything. Well, you haven't tried everything. And if you try to drive in the future using a rear view mirror to guide yourself, I got news for you, you're going to crash. You have to be able to look forward and create what you want, even if you've never been able to do it before. If you just tried it and it didn't work, this moment is new. Something about you is new. You made a new distinction, something you may be unaware of. Maybe the environment's changed. Maybe you just need to change your approach. But you got to believe that you can, because the only reason to say you can't is you think you've tried everything, which is a lie, or you believe that it just has never worked before. The past does not equal the future unless you live there. If you live in the past, then I guarantee your future will be the same way. Now, these are just beliefs, but beliefs control our actions. You might want to write down another phrase, and that is all beliefs carry with them consequences. All beliefs carry with them consequences. Human behavior is belief-driven. Okay? All beliefs carry with them consequences, and human behavior is belief-driven. What does that mean? It simply means that if somebody does something, they got a reason. Even if it may seem insane to you, even if they may not know what the reason is consciously, they got a reason. It's based on something they believe, that by doing this, it'll give them something they need or want unconsciously, some set of feelings they need. That's why people do what they do. So we all need to understand what a belief is. Maybe you should write down a definition of a belief as well, because people make a belief into a thing, and all a belief is a feeling. A belief is a feeling. That's all it is, right? A belief is a feeling of certainty. That's all a belief is. A belief is a feeling of certainty about what something means. A belief is nothing but a feeling of certainty about what something means. Again, jot it down. A belief is nothing but a feeling of certainty about what something means. So when you say, I believe this, you're saying, I'm certain about this. If you say, Tony, I believe I'm an intelligent person, what you're saying is, Tony, I feel what? I feel what? Certain that I'm an intelligent person, okay? That's all a belief is. Now let me give you a metaphor. What's the difference between an idea and a belief? Well, you can have an idea that the world is flat, but not believe it, not feel certain that the world is flat. Or you can have a belief that the world is round and be certain the world is round. Let me give you a metaphor for it. Here's the difference between an idea and a belief. An idea is like a tabletop with no legs. Now, what's the problem with the tabletop with no legs? If you push against it, what's it going to do? Fall down. There's nothing to hold it up. There's nothing to make it solid or certain. What a belief is a tabletop with legs underneath it to support it. So let me give you an example. Let's take an idea like, I'm sexy. Everybody say, I'm sexy. Go ahead. Oh, come on. Say it again like you mean it. Oh, come on. One more time. Okay, great. Raise your hand if what you said just now was not an idea. It wasn't just a phrase. You really believe what you just said, that you're sexy. Raise your hand if you really believe you're sexy. Keep your hands up if you really believe you're sexy. There is no question in your mind. You are flat sexy. That's just how it is, okay? Okay, good. All right. Now, drop your hand. Raise your hand if you are not sexy. If you are not sexy. Okay, where the hell are the rest of you people? Well, maybe I'm sexy, maybe I'm not. Okay? So those who know they're sexy, and no one can convince you otherwise, raise your hand. If you absolutely know you're sexy, no one can convince you otherwise. You flat know you're sexy. That's just how it is. Facts are facts. Okay, baby? All right? All right, let's do an example. How about this lady right here? Yes, ma'am. Give her a microphone. What's your name, my dear? Angela. Angela, stand up so we can see if we agree with you. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Now, Angela, tell me something. You believe, go ahead and stand up, seriously. You believe you're sexy, is that right?
Yes.
You're certain you're sexy, is that right?
Yes.
Great. How do you know you're sexy? Do you have a few references?
More than a few.
More than a few. So what she's telling us is she's got some legs under her table.
Legs, anyhow.
Right? And those legs are known as references or reference experiences. She's had certain experiences in life that when she's thought about them a long time ago, she used those to back up the belief that says, I'm sexy. And now she's certain, it's solid. She may not even remember what those legs are anymore. She just believes she's sexy. But the way she got herself to believe it is she noticed certain things and assembled them as a way to back up that thought. Now she doesn't have to think about the legs, she just knows. So what are some of your references? Seriously, how do you know you're sexy?
Confidence.
Confidence. What gives you confidence?
Inner strength. Experience.
Experience. So that's what references are. What kind of experience makes you know you're sexy?
How I've handled myself in tough situations.
That's how you know you're sexy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what built the confidence.
What's a tough situation?
right off the bat, I think of a work situation, maybe a political situation at work that I handled gracefully.
And so that meant you were sexy because you handled a work situation gracefully?
That's what created the confidence that makes me feel
Oh,
sexy.
okay. So, but I'm asking you what makes you feel sexy is what makes you confident that you're sexy, not confident you can handle a work situation. That was a good try, but that's not quite what we're going for. Okay.
Okay, I've been told.
Okay, you've been told. She's been told, ladies and gentlemen. By men?
Yes,
Okay. Has this happened more than once in your life?
yes,
So she has many experiences of men telling her sexy. Have men ever lied to you before, though?
yes.
Just kidding.
But not about the sexy part.
Oh, not about the sexy part. Okay, good. I agree with you. That's why I picked you. Now, so you've had men tell you. How else do you know you're sexy?
I feel it.
Okay, what makes you feel it? What experiences make you feel like you're sexy?
Working out.
Working out. So she works out, she looks at her body, and she compares it to references of women that in the culture have been promoted as attractive. And she compares it and says, yeah, I'm sexy. How many followers? I want you to notice most of us don't even know why we believe what we believe anymore. Because what's happened is the legs, we don't look down the legs, we look at the tabletop. And sometimes we develop beliefs that don't support us. In her case, this is an empowering belief. Have you ever been driving down the street and had a guy like honk his horn, like point at you? No? Are you sure? He was telling you to move, basically, was what I was going to tell you.
As a police officer.
As a police officer, very good. So the point of the matter is she's built enough references that she knows she's sexy. Could she have taken these same references, like men telling her she's sexy, and use it to back up a different belief, that men are scum and they'll say anything to get what they want? Could she have, some women are going, that's right. Okay? The truth of the matter is, here's the point. Experience is no guarantee of an empowering belief system. There are many very sexy people that don't feel very sexy. Because when they see the same evidence she sees or hears or feels, they discount it and they use it to back up a different belief, which is people are just being nice to me, or they're trying to manipulate me, or whatever. It's really important to realize this because lots of time people have experiences you would think would give them a good belief, but they've not assembled them into a good belief. She has. Give her a hand. Thank you very much for playing. Oh, a real hand. Come on, for God's sake, she's sexy. Oh, yes. All right, now, so I want you to get also, for example, I want you to think about something for a moment. How many of you have references? I'm not saying you believe this, but you have experiences. Now, by the way, references can be things you've experienced, things you've read about, things people have told you, or even things you've imagined. Can you imagine enough things that you're certain how things are? Like make up something in your head and then find out later you were dead wrong? How many have ever done this? Say aye. Okay, so references are not just experiences from the past. There are things you can make up, read about, etc. So how many of you have experiences, references, that if you wanted to, could back up the idea that people are basically mean and harsh, and if you give them half a chance, they'll rip you off? I'm not saying you believe that, but how many have plenty of experiences if you wanted to that could back up that belief? Raise your hand, say aye. How many of you have plenty of references to back up the opposite belief if you wanted to? The belief that says that people really are loving and caring, and if you really care about them, they'll care about you. How many have references to back that up? Say aye. Okay, then the question is, which one is true? Nope. Whichever one you assemble is what's going to be true for you. See, whatever you line up, because once you get certain about something, that's all you'll notice. That's all you'll see. Take my test right now. Look around the room as fast as you can, and look everywhere you can and see everything you can see that's brown, as fast as you can, anything that's brown. Brown. Look everywhere to find brown. Look behind you, look around, I'm going to give you a test. Brown. Anything else that's brown, look for brown. Quick, look for brown. Okay, close your eyes. Now with your eyes closed, now tell me everything you saw in the room that's blue. Raise your hand if you got a lot more brown in your head than blue right now. Raise your hand, say aye. Okay, open your eyes now. Look for blue. Look for blue. Everywhere you can look for blue. Quick, look for blue. Look for blue. Look for blue. Anywhere you can find blue, look for it. Look for it. Look around you. How many see a lot more blue this time? If you do, say aye. Why? That's right. Here's a little clue in life. In life, you get what you look for. Seek and you shall find. The problem is if you're looking for something lousy, you'll find it. Many of you saw something that was beige and you called it brown just so you could feel successful. Right? So what happens is if you're looking for something bad, even if it's not there, you'll shade it. If you're looking for something good, you'll shade it to get what it is that you think you want. So I want you to be clear about this because this process is so important. So once you develop a belief, it determines what you look for. So now, let's talk about what are the 3 steps. These are the 3 beliefs. It must change, I must change it, I can change it. What are the actual 3 steps to creating change? Here's the first step. You want to create lasting change in yourself or someone else. This is always step 1. If you tried and failed to create change, this is the thing you didn't have enough of, and it's called leverage. Leverage. What is leverage? Well, leverage is when a person in their mind, in their body, in their emotion, in their nervous system, when they link up, that not changing, like failing to change right now, will mean unbearable, immediate, devastating levels of pain. I guarantee you they'll find a way to change. How many follow this? Like, what if you said, I'm really depressed, and I put a gun to your head and said, get happy quicker, I'm going to blow your brains out? How many think you might be able to find a way to get happy rapidly? Let me see your hands. Whereas for years, you were sitting on a therapist couch and you couldn't handle it. The only difference is I brought more what to the table? Leverage, greater consequence. The reason we don't change is, on the one hand, we want to change because we're not thoroughly happy. But on the other hand, we're afraid changing itself might be painful, or we might go through that whole process and it still might not work, and then we'd be disappointed and that feel even worse. So the reason we don't change is we think change equals pain. The reason we do change is when we see not changing is more painful than anything else. So to get leverage, you want to accomplish 2 things. You want to get the person you're wanting to change, whether it be yourself or someone else, to associate. Associate means not just intellectualize. It's like intellectually you may know chocolate's not good for you, but that's not going to change your behavior until we mix it with tuna casserole in your nervous system. When it's in your gut, now your body will respond. When it's in your head, it's intellectual. So when I say associate, think about association means something you feel in your nervous system rather than something you understand intellectually. How many follow that? Say I. So to get leverage, you want someone to associate, feel in their gut that not changing equals massive, here's the other key word, immediate, unbearable levels of pain. So, to get someone to change, if you've tried everything and it doesn't work, you need more leverage. Get yourself or that person you're working with, whoever you're trying to create change with, to associate that if I don't change, it's going to mean massive, immediate, unbearable levels of pain. Some key words there, massive. Another key word, immediate. You might say, you know what, if I keep smoking, I'll probably get cancer. You know what the problem with that is? It's not immediate. It's way off in the future, in the distance. Remember when you made those pictures in your head last night, and I had you bring the picture closer? Did it intensify the way you felt about it, yes or no? So when you put it further away, it almost didn't have much effect, did it? Well, when something is thought of as to be way off in the future, even if it's bad, it doesn't give us enough leverage to change. When it's immediate, that's when it gets us to change. Now, people don't want to change just for painful reasons, so the other form of leverage is this. You want to get this person to associate, which means in their gut, not in their intellect, that changing now, to change now, equals massive, extraordinary, and immediate levels of what, guys? Pleasure. See, when you link up in your brain, changing is pleasurable and not changing is ultimate pain, the person will find the way. Write this in your notes somewhere. Change is never a matter of ability. Change is never a matter of ability. It's always a matter of motivation. Another word for that is leverage. Change is never a matter of ability. Change is always a matter of motivation. When someone has enough reasons, they will flat change, period. But you got to get enough leverage. And I'll tell you how we keep ourselves from getting leverage. We use words that soften what we're doing. Like we say, well, I'm a bit overweight, or I'm a little bit, robust, or, I'm round, in big places and stuff. No, you're fat is what you are, okay? Okay? And you got to call a spade a spade. Because as long as you say, well, I'm kind of, a little smidge overweight, you're never going to do it. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't care if you're overweight. I don't judge you. I care about you. I don't want your heart to be working 20 times harder than it needs to be and have you die a young death. I don't care about how you look. That's your business. But if you're overweight, the reason you're overweight is you don't give yourself enough pain for it. You do softeners because you don't want to feel bad about yourself because you think you've tried everything. So I've tried everything, nothing's worked, so I just got to adjust to this. So I want you to get it. You got to tell yourself the truth. I'm telling you this as a friend. I'm not telling you this from judgment. And by the way, do we all do this at different levels, yes or no? I mean, it's the Jerry Springer show. It's not like or people say, well, you should have seen what I used to be like. Oh, because you were a pig before, and now you're a little bit better. You're a small pig, it's okay. Right? And by the way, this isn't just fat. We do this with finances, right? We do this with drugs. We do this with the relationships that don't serve us. You got to finally tell yourself the truth. And that's painful, but that pain will serve you because it will move you. It's like Stallone. If he'd gone off and made himself feel good, he would have lost his hunger and drive. So that's why he didn't take on another job. He stayed there in the pain so he'd have to be driven forward. How many follow that? Say aye. But you know what most of us do? The minute we get a little pain, we want to immediately get rid of it. So we drink something, we eat something, we smoke something, we watch something to take away the pain of the moment. But when you take away the pain, you take away the drive to change. And so now change is not a must, it's a should. And so you keep on feeling bad about yourself, never getting what you really deserve. Whether it be the mind, the body, the spirit, the emotion that you deserve. So you got to be honest with yourself. How many follow this? Say aye. You got to not only be honest, you got to pour it on a little bit and get enough drive. It's uncomfortable. But that discomfort will give you the leverage to really finally do something that is lasting. Okay? Really, 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 really critical here. By the way, think of a change in your own life or maybe someone you know, that was really hard for you to make. Like, really hard. You kept trying to change, never followed through, and finally one day, wham, you said, that's it, no more, never again, it's over. That's the day you got enough leverage. Now, you don't want to wait for life to have to do that to you. You want to be conscious about it. You want to be direct about it so you get what you deserve. That's what you really have to do. How many have ever done this in a relationship? You're in a relationship, terrible relationship, but you keep rationalizing it. Well, it used to be good. It'll be good again. Because see, if the present is painful, you can always escape to the past. If the past is painful, you can always make up a future that's better. Because no one really knows about the future, so you can make stuff up. And as you make it up, it's a reference that makes you more certain it'll be okay, and you kind of stay where you are. How many of you got in a relationship at one point where you finally said, I've had it, it was painful in the past, it's painful in the present, it's going to be painful in the future, I am out of here. And you got enough leverage. How many have done this? Say aye. But until you were honest with yourself that way, you hung out in numbness. See, most people live in a world that I call no man's land. They're in a place where they're not really happy, but they're not unhappy enough to do anything about it. And that's the worst possible place you can be. That's being in a rut. The second step to creating lasting change is you must interrupt the limiting pattern. Step 2 is you must interrupt the limiting pattern or the disempowering pattern. You must interrupt it. You must scramble it. You might write the word scramble it. If you break a pattern enough, again and again and again and again and again, pretty soon your body can't get back into it anymore. Think of it this way. Think of it as being like, how many of you listen to your music on compact discs, on CDs? Say aye. So when you listen to a CD, how come every time you listen to that CD, you hear the same music? Well, the answer is because even though you can't see it, on that disc is cut a pattern. It's cut right into it. So when the laser goes across it, it's the same pattern, plays the same music. Well, what if you're listening to a CD in your head mentally? You have this set of beliefs you have already, a CD you're already listening to as a metaphor. And I take a new belief, a new CD, and try and jam it on top of the one that's already playing. Is that going to work? Yes or no? Yes or no? So the only way to create lasting change is to interrupt the pattern. I got to take out the CD you got. I got to take out a needle and go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth across that thing till I break the pattern so much, I scramble it up so much, it'll never play the same way again. Now you try to put it in there, it doesn't feel good. So now you're open to something new, and now I can give you a new pattern. So to create lasting change, you've got to get leverage, but you've also got to first interrupt the old pattern before you can create a new pattern. And I'll give you a simple example you've probably experienced in your life. You ever been in a conversation that's really important to you? You're really into it. You talk along with somebody, and somebody over here asks you some stupid question that has nothing whatsoever to do with what you're talking about. You say, what? What are you talking about? And they tell you, and you go, oh, and you answer their question, and now you come back to what you're talking about, and what happened? Come on, what happened? It's gone. How many have had this happen? Say aye. How many have had your pattern broken so strongly that even though this thing was important, you never figured out what it was and got back to it again? How many have had that happen? Say aye. So pattern reps are powerful. I'll give you an example. I used to bite my fingernails down to the quick when I was a kid. I mean, down to where they bleed. And I hated it, but I'd still do it. It was like something I was just trained to do in my body. And so I kept trying to change it. Trying ought to tell you it was a should. Right? I try. Try doesn't happen. So finally one day, I'm a young man, I'm in business, and I'm marketing this product or service to this particular woman who's the head of this company. And as I'm talking to her, I'm hoping to make a larger sale because this lady is magnificent. I'm thinking this could be a really important business relationship, right? And so we're developing a really great rapport, and she seems to really like me, and I really like her, and the relationship's starting to get fun and playful, and everything's great. And now we're coming back to the end, and we're going to close the deal, the business part of the deal, and I'm hoping to close an additional deal later on. And so as we put this thing across, and I hand her the paper to sign, as I do it, she suddenly grabs my hand. And I look at her, and she grabs my hand, and she goes, what is this? And she looks at my fingers, and they're all like red on the end, you know, from blood, where they bled and stuff and dried up, and it's really gross looking, right? She goes, what is this? What happened to you? I said, well, and I bite my fingernails. She took my hand, and she just shoved it aside, and she goes, I can't do business with you. I said, what? She goes, I can't do business with somebody who doesn't even have enough self-discipline not to bite their own fingernails. She goes, I'm out of here, and she got up and left. What an unfeeling person. But then after a while, I started thinking, God, she's right. And that provided me with enough what? Physical pain didn't do it. Loss of love, that'll do it. Embarrassment, that'll do it. That gave me leverage. But then, after I did it, I did something called a swish pattern. Some of you are familiar with it. I've written about in my books. Very effective pattern. And it's a conditioning pattern. So I did that, but I remember 2 days later, I'm in a movie, and as I'm in the movie, I'm sitting there, and as I do, I found my fingers in my mouth. Now, the good news is I noticed they're in my mouth. So instead of going, oh my God, this doesn't work, it's a failure, I went, oh cool, I realized that I caught it. So I did about 25 more swish patterns right there in the movie, and I've never touched my fingernails since. But the secret is I had to interrupt the pattern besides getting the leverage. Right? So that process is what we're talking about here. Let me give you an example. I remember working with a man one time, and he told me, you know, he always smoked cigarettes, and I knew him really well, and I said, listen, I can help you with that. And he goes, I don't want to change. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to make you change. One day he comes back, and he's not smoking anymore. I said, what happened? He said, it's amazing, Tony. He said, I'll never smoke again as long as I live. He said he was sitting here in his library, reading the newspaper, and smoking a cigarette. And as he's reading the newspaper, smoking the cigarette, in walks waddles in his 5-year-old daughter, who's just totally precious. And he loves her more than anything. And she's crying hysterically. He goes, honey, what's the matter? He puts the paper down, still holding the cigarette. He says, honey, what's the matter? And she goes, Daddy, I don't want you to die. He goes, honey, I'm not going to die. What are you talking about? Yes, you are, Daddy. He goes, no, I'm not going to die. What do you mean? She points at the cigarette. And he looks at the cigarette, and he looks at her, and he says, oh, honey, I'm not going to die. That's nothing to worry about. She goes, yes, you are, Daddy. And I don't want you to, because I wanted you to be there when I got married. She starts crying hysterically. Right? In one fell swoop, 2 steps happen. Massive what? And a massive interruption in his pattern. See, he's willing to go through the physical pain himself, but he's not willing to hurt his daughter. Many of us will do more for others we care about than we'll even do for ourselves. For many, that'll be greater leverage than just you. But if you do something that creates leverage and interrupts the pattern, you got something that's really, really effective. Or I'll give you a different example. One of the first times I ever did a seminar in other languages, now I do, like my university, we have 7 languages translated simultaneously. The first time I went to a foreign country was local. I went up to Canada, and I went up to Montreal, and I was sponsored there by a company in the area. And I didn't know what it was like to talk to a group like that, so I worked really hard, because if you've been to Montreal, you know they're quite sensitive about the French language and against the English language. So I don't know any French, so I worked hard the night before and memorized the paragraph in French to introduce myself in. They all got headsets on, about 2/3 of the audience. And then I get up and I start speaking in French, which blew them away. for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes. Then I said, that's all the French I know, went on. So we had a great time, a couple thousand people, great seminar. People loved it, it was really wonderful, great success. And I learned things like when you tell a joke in a foreign language, what happens when you tell it in English, you know, maybe a third of your audience starts to laugh, the rest of the people are quiet, just staring at you. And then now you're on to something serious, and the other third of the room, 2/3 of the room starts laughing. It's kind of an interesting experience. So at the end of this event, I felt like it was a great success. And one of the people who was part of the company that sponsored me there comes up to me and says it was phenomenal, on and on, give me all these great compliments. So I thought, okay, they're sincere compliments, it's a great event. And then the person looks at me and says, Mr. Robbins, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to have dinner with us tonight. And the way they did, have you ever had somebody do something where you go, something's up? How many have had that experience, right? You just know, right? It isn't about dinner, obviously. But I thought, what the heck, why not? I want to find out what it is. So I said, sure. They said, okay, be there at X time. They're acting so weird. So that night I get to the restaurant, and there's a private room where this company has taken over the room, and they sit me down in this like horseshoe set of tables, and at the very head is the chairman of the board, who's a very, very famous man in Montreal and very, very wealthy man. And next to him is his wife, and they put me on the other side of him, and then all the rest of the members of the company. He owns many companies, including the company that sponsored me. And so the conversation, you know, dinner's not yet served. They're just, you know, bringing drinks out and so forth. Things are going fine. People are being very warm and very nice. And then all of a sudden, this guy, the chairman of the board, turns across the table to this other man across the table and starts screaming at him 4-letter words and yelling at him and just dressing him down in front of everybody. And I couldn't even believe it. And so finally, you know, I inside of me, I thought, man, this is really, really uncool. I really want to like make a change in this man's physiology because it was really abusive. But I thought, it's not your company, it's not your place, that's not why you're here. I mean, they got to deal with their own situation here. And basically, he used the leverage of his money to be abusive to other people. It became very obvious. It really annoyed me. So I kind of blew it off. We continued to have dinner. And then not 10 minutes later, he turns to his wife in front of everybody, starts screaming at her every kind of 4-letter word you can imagine in front of everybody. I couldn't even believe it. Now, my pot is boiling, right? And I'm thinking, this guy needs a major change in physiology, right? And so I'm thinking how I want to do this. And then all of a sudden, he calms down finally, and the whole room is just silent. You know what I mean? After one of those things, everybody's like, looks like beaten down dogs, being quiet to see what's going to happen. And there's one voice in the back, way towards the back part of the table, probably the furthest part of the table is why he probably said it. One of the other executives said this man's name, the chairman, was Jean. He says, Jean, how are you doing on that anger stuff with your therapist? Right? And Jean goes, well, we've been working on it for years, as you know, and I think we've made some progress, but I'm just that kind of person. And you could see that he had pride in the fact that he could be abusive because it gave him a sense that he was powerful, that he was significant. And so this person said, well, you know, Jean, and the person who said this is the person who invited me to dinner. You start to get the picture? He says, well, you know, Jean, Mr. Robbins is considered to be the best therapist in all of America. He's able to create change in lightning-like speed. Aren't you, Mr. Robbins? All of a sudden, I understood why I was invited to dinner. So he said, oh, no, Mr. Robbins, I would never take up your time at this wonderful dinner. It would be so unfair to you and everything else. He said, but Mr. Robbins, what would you do? And I said, well, you know, you're right, sir. I said, you know, you're not my patient, so, you know, I couldn't work with you. I said, but if you were, I said, what I do is actually train your nervous system to change so it really would. He said, really? How would you do that? That's all the opening I needed. I said, well, I'd say, do you remember what you said to that man over there earlier? He said, no. I said, sure you do. Remember, you were calling those 4-letter words, you were saying this, you were saying that. You kind of enjoyed it a little bit, it looked like. He went, well, yes. And I reached out and I went, wham! I hit him as hard as I could in the shoulder. He went, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, I'm showing you what I would do if you were my patient, but you're not my patient, so I would never do that, right? He's like, and the people at the table like, right? And I'm looking at him smiling. And as I do this, he doesn't know how to process it because I'm not looking mean. I'm just going, that's what I do if you're my patient, but you're not, so I'd never do that. And he's like, you ever see people when they're totally confused and they like search every quadrant of their brain? Right? So now what have I done? Massively interrupted his pattern and gotten major what? Leverage. See, you can talk to your blue in the face. That's not going to change this guy. He said, wow, that was painful. I said, that's the idea. So if I was your therapist, that's the kind of thing I do, and I do it enough that you would never do it again, ever. Right? And he's like, oh. He said, oh, that would be, yeah, I can see that might work. I said, oh, no, it will work. As a matter of fact, remember what you said to your wife? You went, no. And I went, wham, hit him twice. I was like, stop that, stop that. So I said, stop what? He said, what do you mean what? That's what you just did. I said, oh, I'm just showing you what I would do if you're my patient, but you're not my patient, so I would never do that. And the people at the table were like, some are going, hit him again, hit him again. Right? True story, no exaggeration. So you didn't really hit him. I really did. And if any of you know some of my therapy examples, you know I will do whatever it takes. My job is, you asked for it, you got it. All right, you're going to get it. So this guy now, he's like shaking from this thing. He goes, wow, I can really see how that would work. I said, is there anybody else you've been abusive to recently? He said, no. So now, what have I done? I got leverage and I've interrupted both of those things. So the last step number 3 is this. Hi. Step number 3 is this. Once you got the leverage, once you interrupt the pattern, third step is you must create an empowering alternative. You must create an empowering alternative. In other words, an alternative pattern. You can't just stop smoking. You got to start doing something else. And what most people do is they stop smoking and start eating. So that's why you got to find an empowering alternative. So create an empowering alternative. I can't just say stop yelling at people, because his yelling at people gives him a sense of certainty that they'll listen to him and that they'll change. How many follow that? So if we just say don't do that, then we've not met the need that he used to get. We want to meet the need more elegantly. If you're smoking, it's probably because you're stressed, and when you smoke, you take deep diaphragmatic breaths, and so you get out of stress. When most people are stressed, they stop breathing, or they breathe very shallowly. When you have very little oxygen, that adds a smidge to your stress. So cigarettes now, while there's a physical addiction, what made it happen initially was it relaxed you. So you don't want to just stop smoking and be stressed. You have something else that'll relax you. So what a lot of people do is they eat tons of food, so the stomach fills up, and all the blood rushes in there, and they start breathing in their diaphragm again. But there are better alternatives. Does that make sense? So you got to come up with an empowering alternative, and once you do it, and reinforce it. Reinforce it. How do you reinforce something? You notice it. You give it pleasure. You acknowledge it. You reward it. So you might want to use the word reward it, and reinforce it or reward it until it becomes habit. Until it becomes habit. So you got to create an empowering alternative, and you got to reinforce it until it becomes habit. What creates lasting change is when you do something and you're rewarded for it. When you give yourself rewards, you feel happy, you feel proud of yourself, you feel a sense of excitement or freedom or more love. When you get that reinforcement on a regular basis, pretty soon it just becomes who you are. That's what we want to do. And so that's what I did with him. So a year later, I had him come up with these alternatives how to communicate. And throughout the night, when he started communicating with somebody, he did something right, I caught him doing it right. And I'd say, now, John, I want to say something to you. Do you see Bob's face over here? The way you just interact with him? So you can try and force him to do something or make him fear you, and he'll do a little bit. But people only do so much out of fear. They do the minimum out of fear. But when they love you, when they care about you, when they feel respected by you, they'll do anything for you. And this guy really would do anything for you. Look at his face right now. Doesn't that feel better? And I'd make him stop and notice so he wasn't unconscious. And he'd say, honestly, it really does. And he said, Bob, I really do care about you. And these great anchors happened that night where I kept reinforcing him. So he had plenty of alternatives, and he saw it gave him more of what he wanted than the old behavior. So now I come back a year and a half maybe later, and I do the seminar, things go great, and the same guy afterwards says, Mr. Robbins, would you like to come to dinner? And I look at him, and I can't tell if he's, got something or not. So I said, sure. Same restaurant, same room, same everything. Sit down, table. I'm sitting next to Jean. John, it's great to have you back. Everything's warm. Everything's wonderful. He seems really happy. Everybody's great. I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. It all worked, right? And then maybe 15 minutes into sitting there, all of a sudden John comes across and starts screaming at this person against the table. And I can just feel every part of my body going, obviously didn't break the pattern strong enough. I'm going to do it this time. And I just feel my face and body tighten up. And all of a sudden he turns over and goes, gotcha. And everybody, the whole place started laughing. It was a setup. And they all went around the table and they acknowledged me and they acknowledged John and talked about he's never been the same since. His life has never been the same. He's such an incredibly warm and loving man now from that process, you know, just from that piece. Now, whether you're trying to change someone from being mean to nice or whether you're trying to get rid of addiction, it's the same steps. So for example, when I first built my career, I'd get on radio and television in Canada and I launched my career saying, I don't care what your problem is, I'll handle it. So I got all kinds of things. But one of my first therapies ever was a smoking therapy. Now bear in mind, I'm staying at the Westin Hotel in a place called Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Anybody been there? It's a magnificent place. You've not been there. It's as pretty as any city in the world, I think. And so I'm there and I'm staying in this hotel and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And I'm waiting in my room for my first real major therapy. And it's a smoking therapy. And I look at my watch and the guy doesn't show up and I look, he doesn't show up, look, doesn't show up. So then I think, well, you know, no one knew my face in those days or even knew my name. So maybe he forgot my name and he's at the hotel. So I figure I'll go downstairs to see if he's in the lobby. So as I go out to exit my door of my room, right outside the door is this guy sitting there puffing like crazy. So I said, are you Bob? He said, yeah. I said, Bob, what are you doing out here? He goes, I'm having my last cigarette. Now, what does that tell me? That tells me he links pain to stopping smoking, not pain to smoking. As long as he thinks stopping smoking is going to be painful, it's not going to work. How many follow this? We have to change that, what we call neuroassociation. It's a big word. It means what he associates in his nervous system, in his gut, right? Not what he has in his head. In his head, he knows better. But in his gut, his neuroassociations are rigged that stopping smoking is painful. That's why he's never done it before. So he wants me to do this painful thing to him. That won't work. So I think in a moment's notice, I come up with an idea. And I said, come with me. And we don't go to my room. We start walking down the hall. He goes, where are we going? I said, downstairs. He goes, I want to do this in private. I said, we will. Follow me. We get on the elevator, go downstairs. And I haven't been there in about 2 or 3 years. But even 2 or 3 years ago, in this day and age where very few people seem to smoke in public, at the Westin Hotel, they still have a tobacco shop there. And so we go down to this tobacco shop, and as you go in, the smells are everywhere, right? So when people smell the smells, they go into state, right? So this guy's in state, right? He's got his cigarettes back. He's one happy camper. So I said, what brand do you smoke? So he tells me. I said, great. Give me 12 cartons. And the guy looks at me and goes, 12 cartons? I said, yeah, 12 cartons. The guy goes, looks at him, 12 cartons? I said, yeah, pay the man. He's like, pay the man. So he pays him. So now I said, pick him up. So he's got 6 cartons here, 6 cartons here. We're walking down the hall. I'll never forget his face. We get on the elevator. The door closes. He's holding all these cartons of cigarettes. He looks at me and says, you're not going to make me smoke these, are you? I said, now we're making progress. Now he's linking pain to smoking already. How many follow this? Say aye. So we go sit in the room. And a lot of times when you're trying to change, helping someone make a change, the problem is you're changing a part of them that doesn't need to change, like the part of them that's really great. You need to get them in their smoking state and change that part of them. So I said, go ahead and open all the cartons, pull out all the cigarettes, and unwrap every one and pull 1 cigarette so it's accessible so you can just grab it real easily. And while you're doing that, tell me why you started smoking. And so he goes, okay, he starts undoing the cartons. And as he does, he kind of gets in state. He smells the cigarettes and starts undoing it, and he goes into state, right? And he starts telling me, well, when I started out, I really didn't want to smoke, but all my friends did, and it was like the cool thing to do, and he's going into state, right? And so I said, okay, well, light one up. He looked at me and he went, what do you mean light one up? I came here to stop. I said, I know, but you really want one, so light one up. He went, well, no, I don't want one. I want to stop. I said, light one up right now. And I started acting crazy. Right now, you understand me? He's like, now he's smoking like this. And he's freaked out. Now imagine, these are the feelings, tuna casserole mixing with smoking. You get the idea? I go, I don't like this, I don't like this. I said, that feel cool? No, it doesn't feel cool, no. I said, does that feel, no, it doesn't feel good, I don't like, what don't you like? I don't like this. What don't you like? I don't want to smoke. As soon as he said that, I like transformed. Because I acted like I was crazy. He's freaking out. He's walked in a room with this insane man, right? So as soon as he says, I don't want to do this, I'd say, you don't want to smoke? I'd act really calm again. And he'd go, no. I said, well, then do whatever you want to do. He goes, well, I want to put it out. I said, well, do whatever you want to do. I said, really? I said, sure. He goes and starts putting it out. I said, light up 2 more. He said, no, I really don't want to. Light up 2 more right now! Now! No, you light them up now! Oh, gee. He's freaking out of his mind. I'd be screaming, is that cool? Does that feel cool? No, no. Finally, eventually, he'd go like, I don't like this, I don't like it. You don't like what? I don't want to smoke. What's that? I don't want to smoke. I said, oh, well then, do whatever you want to do. He's like, well, I want to put them out. I said, go ahead. Really? Sure. He puts them out. You can just see he's afraid, right? Puts them out. I said, light up 6 more. He's like, I light up 6 more now. And I go 10 times crazy. And he said, put them between his fingers. Come on, suck on every one of them. Suck on them. How's that feel? Finally, we get to the point, I'd say, light up 5 more. And I had a whole ashtray filled with half-smoked cigarettes, put it on his nose. He's breathing, there's smoke in his face, hating it, right? So how's that feel? I hate it. Right? I said, light up another one. He said, no. I said, you light up another one right now. No, you can't make me smoke. Now we broke the pattern. So then when you get an alternative. And so we went outside, and he dumped his cigarettes over the side down into the ocean. I wouldn't do that now, but he did it. And he blew his nose, and all this black soot came out, right? Just all over the place in his handkerchief, right? Kept blowing his nose, you know. And I did too, because I was in the room taking it all in also. It's a terrible way to do it stuff. It's one of the reasons I stopped doing them eventually, came up with a different technique, right? Because I was going to have cancer doing all these therapies on these people, right? And so he goes out there, now he's breathing fresh air, and the fresh air feels so good, and then he comes up with the alternative and condition it. It works. It always comes down to leverage, interrupting the pattern, and creating an empowering alternative. Stand up and stretch.